Thank you for listening to Weeknight Mysteries podcast. My name is Yoras, and I'm here with my co-host Rain. How are you?
Hello, everyone. As always, I'm good. I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited today to bring a case that has been suggested by one of our commenters on our YouTube channel. It's an older case this time. We want to talk about the disappearance of 17-year-old Randy Leach. Now, this case happened over 30 years ago. I believe it was 35 years ago. It's generally about a young teenage man who has been missing from Kansas, the state of Kansas. And this case, I think, resonated with me personally because he was the only child for his parents, Harold and Alberta Leaches. And they kept on searching for him all these years. And this case is still being talked about. And people are still trying to find answers. So we thought that this was a very relevant topic to bring to our audience this week. Before we get going, I would like to immediately plug the GoFundMe page for Randy Leach. It's basically ran, I believe, by his family, by his mother, and she states on the GoFundMe that Randy has been missing for 30 years. Randy is our only child. We have searched every day since April 16th, 1988. We have searched through cornfields, dug under trees in remote areas, hired cadaver dog teams, searched the Kansas River, walked creek banks and ponds, driven to Idaho on a lead, used sonar equipment, radar equipment, and many, many other things to look for Randy. We humbly ask for resources to continue our search. There are more opportunities that we are able to consider, and we need to do all that is possible while we can. We have stood together for 30 years, and we will never end our search for Randy until we can lay him to rest. We graciously ask for your help with love and gratitude, Harold and Alberta. So, with that out of the way, and with everyone, who has a few extra dollars laying around, please go to the GoFundMe that we will link in our description of this podcast. Let's discuss the case. Generally, what do you know about Randy Leach's case, Rain?
It's actually the first case wherein I don't know anything. Well, I've seen like one interview, but I don't know a lot. But I'm aware of the family, the parents, and they seem to be very nice parents. And the only impression that I had is that the parents were really good, and probably the relationship was fine. So immediately I'm assuming it wasn't a runaway.
Oh yeah, I must agree with you on this one. I don't think it was a runaway case, and let's jump into the details, and maybe us and the audience members can actually come up with some sort of our own conclusions here. So Randy Leach was 17. He is from a small city called Linwood in Kansas. I would even call it more of a town. Linwood is, I think, only inhabited by 500 residents, so it's a small town.
It's a town.
Yeah. He was last seen in the early morning hours of April 16th, back in 1988. This was Saturday morning hours. He was last seen at a classmate's high school graduation party in rural Leavenworth County, Kansas. Randy had driven to the party in his mother's gray 1985 Dodge 600 four-door sedan. The interesting thing about this case is that no one allegedly saw Randy or his vehicle leave the party. Neither his vehicle nor Randy himself have been ever located. A governor's reward is being offered in the amount of $5,000 for information leading to the arrest and conviction of the person responsible for Randy's disappearance. So So it's pretty strange. Randy was at a graduation party. There are witnesses who saw him at the party. It was a really big party. Over 100 people were attending. And no one seems to see him leave, him or his car. What do you think? What's your take about that? Isn't that like somewhat bizarre? 100 plus people, but no one really sees Randy leave the party?
No, I don't think so. Mainly because it's a party and no one's really paying attention. Everyone's just there to get drunk and high and have a good time. So I think it was pretty normal, but the strange part is even the car was missing, you said?
Yeah, the car has never been located. So let me bring some more information into the case. Randy was, at the time of his disappearance, actually restoring a 1969 Mustang. Randy's mother, Alberta Leach, told the media that he loved that car. He was so excited to have it restored, but he never got to see what it looked like all finished. He never got to drive it. So he did have a passion project, and as a 17-year-old restoring a Mustang, that kind of immediately leads me to believe that he's probably not looking to run away. He has something that he's working on, and there are no indications that he would be a runaway, so I think we can probably throw that one out.
Yeah, immediately.
In April of 1988, Randy was just a week away from graduating from Linwood High School in Linwood, Kansas, before he disappeared from a classmate's graduation party. Randy's mother, Alberta, said that he had a really bright future, but somehow it ended that night. And we still don't know why. He was such a good child, even though he was an only child. He wasn't selfish or spoiled. He was always kind to everyone he met. Randy's parents also describe him as a hard worker and as an entrepreneur and a very fast learner. When Randy was around 5 years old, the family of 3 moved to a farm on the outskirts of Linwood, Kansas, in rural Leavenworth County. Growing up, Randy loved all animals and raised pigs on the farm. 2 days before Randy's disappearance, his parents bought him a lawnmower as a graduation gift. Now, Randy's plan was to mow lawns all summer for money and then go to a trade school in the fall. He mowed a lady's yard and ours the day he disappeared, his mom claims. So he was, busy. He was doing stuff.
I just want to say I immediately love the parents. Like a lawnmower for graduation. I mean, it's obvious that they weren't spoiling Randy.
No.
Instead of paying for the trade school themselves, they gave him the tool to work for it.
Exactly.
I love him.
And we don't know. We never met Randy, but from all accounts, seems like Randy was the type of guy who actually appreciated this gift. He was a busy guy.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk a little bit about his disappearance. On the evening of April 15th, which was Friday, at 6:30 p.m. in the early evening hours, Randy drove his mother's 1985 Dodge 4-seat sedan with Kansas license plates LVJ8721 to a local convenience store. There he grabbed some candy, some soda pop, and some gasoline. Afterwards, he talked to some friends and then drove to a nearby city of DeSoto, Kansas, to check on his Mustang because apparently it was being worked on in that city. Randy then drove to the graduation party, which was being held about 5 miles away from his family's home. It is not known exactly what time he arrived at the party. From some sources, Randy didn't arrive at the party until between 9:30 p.m. and 10 p.m. in the evening. He was also carrying $50 to $60 in cash with him at the time. Witnesses told authorities there were approximately 70 to 150 guests at the party and that there was significant alcohol and drug consumption at the party. So probably a very typical party. The one thing that surprised me, when you think about the late 80s in Lithuania, you don't really think about drugs or even the excessive alcohol consumption. I don't know about some other countries, but this kind of surprised me that in America in the 80s
They seem pretty free.
pretty free. Yeah, if they're able to get their hands on like alcohol and
Yeah.
drugs pretty freely in Kansas. I mean, as a someone who's not from America, you wouldn't probably think that way.
Oh, back in the 80s, no.
Yeah, it seemed to me, it would seem like a more recent development, but seems like this type of a I guess
American house party has been
Yeah.
existing all along.
it's been out there for a long time, it seems like, right? So it is actually unclear if Randy consumed alcohol or did any drugs that night. Randy's mother told the media that she later became aware there was a bad crowd at the party, but said she was sure that her son was not into drugs. According to the article from Topeka Capital Journal, witnesses told the authorities that the 6'3", 220-pound Randy Leach appeared to be either drunk or high as he attended a bonfire party that night. He vanished about 5 miles from his home at Linwood in Leavenworth County. Now, another source claims that Randy appeared to be behaving drunk. He also told a friend that he didn't know what was wrong. So, from eyewitness accounts, it did seem that Randy was under some sort of a substance. He was not himself at that party.
For you, did he seem like the type of guy who would get into a fight or would drink and get high? I mean, I can't say for sure.
Yeah, so when I was looking into this case, the only accounts from people who actually knew Randy that I was able to kind of gather from was basically Randy's parents, Alberta and Harold, who has since passed away, so rest in peace, Harold. And then another friend of Randy's who was actually at the party, a woman named Leanne, and a YouTube creator, the channel Adventures with Purpose. They have done pretty extensive research and investigation into this case, and they actually talked with Leanne, classmate of Randy's who was at the party. So she kind of gave us a little bit of a background on Randy. Apparently Randy wasn't really much into drinking or into maybe even some sort of physical altercations all that much. How Leanne, the classmate, described Randy was that Randy was someone who would maybe have a drink only, like an alcoholic drink, only if that was the only thing that was available. He would always ask if there are sodas available. So to me, it didn't seem like he was like a trouble kid, like a problem child. He seemed more like he was, really, as his parents described him, was restoring a Mustang, was about to start mowing lawns for money. Obviously we don't know everything, but from the accounts that I was able to stumble upon, it seems that Randy was a pretty good person, pretty good teenager. Early reports stated that Randy possibly left the party at around 2 a.m. that night, but it is not known if anyone actually saw him leave the party. That's why it's so kind of strange, and it's hard to pinpoint the exact time. When Randy's parents, Alberta and Harold, woke up around 6:30 a.m. on Saturday morning to find Randy wasn't home, they knew something was wrong because Randy had a curfew. He was supposed to be back home by 30 minutes past midnight, and it was not like him to miss it. He actually obeyed the curfew on a regular basis. They feared he had been in a car accident and called one of his friends, but no one had seen or heard from him since the party. A missing persons report was filed that same day, I believe, and the search began for Randy and his car. Alberta told the media that local authorities initially believed that Randy left on his own. However, she says, "I didn't believe that for a second." it didn't make any sense to me. He wouldn't have done that. He wouldn't have left his Mustang behind, and he had a bank account with money in it from selling his pigs. It has never been touched, the money. After the police were contacted, they went to the house that the party was held at. The area had already been cleaned, however, and no evidence as to his whereabouts was discovered. So it was pretty strange. They immediately started cleaning the party. So I think
This was the morning, right?
yeah, the morning. Even before the police came, I believe Randy's parents, and I can't recall, was it Randy's maybe brother, if she had a relative? I kind of missed that detail, but a close relative was a police officer. So they called him before I think the official police investigation even started. So they all together went to the party, and it was already being cleaned in the morning of Saturday. So I guess I don't think it's super strange, in my opinion. I mean, if you have a party, you kind of want to clean up immediately in the morning. You don't want to leave the mess and then clean up on Monday.
Yeah.
You probably want to clean up before Sunday. So I guess that kind of makes sense. But at the same time, do you think there could be some sort of hint of evidence covering happening at this particular
No, I
event?
don't think so. I mean, under my impression, it looks like a typical after party cleanup.
Cleanup procedure, right? After the police were contacted, oh, sorry, I'm reading the same information. The house that the party was held at has since been destroyed by a fire, and I believe,
Oh, that's interesting.
yeah, that's a turn of events, right? And I believe law enforcement was able to establish that it was arson. Now, I don't have the exact date, but as far as I'm aware, it happened recently after the party. It didn't happen like immediately the next day. And I think there is some sort of speculation that the people who owned that house actually burned it down because they performed insurance fraud. So they had an insurance on the house, but they burned it down themselves to collect the money. At least that is the information that I was able to kind of come about.
Okay, the owners of the house seems to be pretty shady people.
Oh,
No?
we're gonna delve into them in a little bit. But before we jump into all of that, I kind of want to go over some theories that are floating around regarding Randy's disappearance. And these theories are kind of all over the place, and I tried to kind of find more information than just from one source, but I wasn't able to do it. So let me jump right into it. Investigators who had investigated the theory that Randy may have been abducted and slain on the night of his disappearance, possibly by an active satanic cult. Later in the same year of 1988, a man called police and stated that he was abducted by a satanic cult and was held against his will inside of a cave for 2 weeks. He claimed that he saw a human body that resembled or might have been Randy Leach. Investigators searched this cave that was indicated by this man, but they found no remains of any evidence of a crime at the location. They believed the man was under the influence of drugs and hallucinated the whole scenario.
Well, that's just a plot twist.
Yeah.
I did not expect that.
I wasn't really able to find any more information about this man.
Satanic rituals?
Yeah, so there's a man claiming that he was abducted, I think just later on in that same year, by, satanic cult, and that he saw a body hanging in a cave where he was held for 2 weeks. So
That's just creepy.
my first idea is, how did that whole thing play out? How are you being held for 2 weeks in rural Kansas, and then how do you even escape?
Yeah.
And then law enforcement claimed that the man had hallucinated the whole scenario. So it could be a chance that maybe this man was on some sort of a drug, and he maybe had hallucinated for a while, and then he was certain that that had happened. But
So-
I don't know.
Yeah, but this means that if he was telling the truth in a small town with 500 people, there's a little amount of people that are involved in satanic rituals. Pretty creepy. And if it's not real, then that means drugs are accessible there.
Oh, the second point you made about the drugs being accessible, I think that's definitely a fact. That's definitely a fact, because we have a lot of people coming out and saying that drugs were actually accessible. The satanic stuff, well, first of all, I would like to add that it would not just mean that, that small town where Randy is from with 500 people. There's like a ton of these little small, enclaves of people living in Kansas. So it could be anyone, you know what I mean? It could be even potentially people from Kansas City, which is this big city, kind of nearby. So once again, I wasn't able to find any more information, so I think we should move to the additional information that I have. There was once a statement given to police that Randy left the party with another man. The man was allegedly said to have dismembered Randy's body after he died of a drug overdose. So that's something we have also. But no additional information. Just one source, one newspaper. That's all I can give you.
Where did they get that?
Someone from the party probably told that as a tip.
Yeah, pretty odd.
There were also statements which said that a classmate of Randy's named Robert Marble was a satanic worshipper, and community members accused several of his peers of being a satanic worshipper after Randy's disappearance. After Randy disappeared, a classmate of Robert Marble, so I believe a classmate of Randy as well, called police and accused him of showing off a knife in a Walmart parking lot. He had allegedly said that this is what we used to sacrifice Randy. He claimed that the accusation was made due to his status as an outcast. Investigators are not sure if Satanism was linked to Randy's disappearance. So let me break it down here. Randy Leach has a classmate, or had a classmate named Robert Marble, who's allegedly a little bit of an outcast, and at some point in the parking lot with another classmate of Randy's, he pulls out a knife and says, "We used this knife to sacrifice Randy." And then that other classmate who witnessed this situation called police and told them everything. And then Robert Marble told police that it was a joke. I just did it because I'm an outcast.
I mean, that's a really stupid joke.
It's a really stupid joke.
Yeah,
right?
if it was a joke, it was a really stupid joke.
17-year-old teenagers, an outcast. I could kind of see how that happens,
Yeah.
Now, there was a twist in this case 5 years after the fact. In 1993, 3 men were arrested on suspicion of abducting and slaying Randy. One of the men was a Satanist, according to a community member. The arresting officer stated he felt he had a probable cause which linked the men to Randy's disappearance and presumed death. They were released without charge soon afterwards due to lack of evidence. Investigators stated they were mistaken about their involvement in the case later on. So 3 men were actually arrested 5 years later, but there was not enough evidence to connect them. So that at the very least, that means that law enforcement at some point literally made an arrest of 3 men in connection to Randy's disappearance, and it was also based off of, well, okay, I don't know if law enforcement was working under the assumption that these people were Satanists, because apparently only one of them was allegedly a Satanist, and it was stated by a community member. So I don't think law enforcement ever really came out and said that, yo, these three men are actually Satanists. But someone from the community said that one of them was. But three men were investigated on suspicion of abducting and slaying Randy. So law enforcement had their investigation focused on foul play, not just an accident. Because to kind of give more perspective about Randy's disappearance, and I think for some people, when I already mentioned that Adventures with Purpose was involved here, it immediately kind of could lead you to believe that maybe this is a case of Randy Leach by accident driving into a body of water, because that's a usual likely outcome when a body and the car is missing. When someone just doesn't arrive home, there's situations where they drag out a car from a lake. But in this case, it seems like law enforcement also investigated the foul play situation, so who knows what really happened that night in the party.
That's true. I just keep on wondering, where's the car? It was never located, right?
Yeah, it was never located.
So that's pretty interesting. If it was an accident and if he drove into a body of water, it would have been completely understandable. If it was a murder case scenario, how did they hide such a thing?
Like a car.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. It seems like it's not that easy, but I guess you could drive that same car into a body of water.
Oh,
you
yeah.
could push it into a lake.
Somewhere farther away from Linwood.
Yeah, somewhere farther away from Linwood, potentially. So
Possibly, yeah.
I think that's probably the go-to way to dispose of a vehicle, is drive it into a lake, because a lot of these times when cars are found inside of lakes or bodies of water, I think they are actually stolen vehicles. So they find a bunch of stolen cars as well. So I think that's a possibility. An adult acquaintance of Randy found a severed foot on the banks of the Kansas River.
Wait, what?
Yeah, so let me break it down. I know I kind of
That's spooky.
started nonchalant here, but there's something more here. So an adult acquaintance of Randy found a severed foot on the banks of the Kansas River in March of 1989. This was around the year after he had been missing. Now, apparently, this adult acquaintance was one of the last people to see Randy before his disappearance. I don't know if he was at the party or not. The foot turned out not to belong to Randy. He is a very odd person in this case, the family claims about this older man who found a foot in the Kansas River. The man apparently drove past Randy's house at 10 miles per hour on the morning that Randy's disappearance was discovered, and the area that Randy lived in was a 55 mile per hour zone. So for some reason, in the morning when Randy went missing, this man just slowly drove past his house. The man has since died. Investigators have not named him as a suspect in the case, and it's unclear if he had any involvement in the disappearance of Randy Leach.
Wait. Hold up.
Yeah.
I want to know more about the foot. Like, who does that belong to?
Yeah, who does that belong to? No, just a foot.
Just a random foot, and they did not even investigate it?
Yeah.
What?
No, maybe they did investigate, but the only information they found, it's not Randy Leach. I don't think they know whose foot is it. Just in the Kansas River.
A random foot.
Yeah, 1 year later, after Randy had went missing.
I have no words.
Okay, and then let's jump to some more information here. In 2018, a longtime investigator on Randy's disappearance, Timothy Dennis, revealed a long-time theory that he had on Randy's disappearance. He does not believe that Randy was murdered on the night he disappeared, as it would have taken an extensive and not likely cover-up. He theorizes that Randy got into a car accident and that his vehicle might have plunged into Stranger Creek. The creek was deep enough to conceal a vehicle through all the seasons without being detected. Sonar searches of the creek found a vehicle, but it turned out to be not Randy's mother's car, which Randy was driving at that time. It could be impossible to find Randy's mother's car since it could have gone anywhere in the past 30 years. A diver even said that Randy's car and his remains could be anywhere between the bridge and St. Louis, or basically St. Louis. The creek was deep enough to conceal a vehicle through all the seasons without being detected. Sonar searches of the creek found... Oh yeah, so I'm just repeating the information. But so... An investigator on the case believes that Randy may have driven into Stranger Creek, and his car may have been now concealed by a lot of underwater sediment and stuff like that. So that's
Still can't get over the foot though.
The foot, yeah.
Like, it's so random.
There's a bunch of mysteries.
Like, we have to talk about it, even if it's not Randy's. That's someone else's foot.
That's someone else's foot. I did see like maybe someone drowned. No.
And then
no, but the foot was with flesh, right?
Yeah. So it was cut by someone else.
Know. Actually, this is why this case is so interesting, is because you could go way deeper. And I'll bring in some more information right now.
Okay.
Because we have even more stuff.
Please.
Here.
Are there even more body parts that were found?
Well, not necessarily, but there are some weird statements.
Okay.
So, according to the Kansas Bureau of Investigations, an investigation determined that Randy did not leave on his own accord and that he was a victim of foul play. So that's what KBI is saying, the Kansas Bureau of Investigations. The Leavenworth County Sheriff's Office in 1992 formally classified Randy's death as a homicide, and it remains unsolved. The KBI and the Leavenworth County Sheriff's Office have since been jointly investigating Randy's disappearance. They would like to find a conclusion as well as closure for the family. For years, rumors and stories circulated about what could have happened to Randy. According to Randy's parents, one of the rumors was that Randy had been abducted and killed by a Satanic cult in the Linwood area. They told the media that there was a report that Randy's body was spotted in a cave nearby. However, authorities searched the area, but no trace of Randy was found. So I think this is the same thing that I already told you a little bit about. For years, Randy's father, Harold, up until the time he passed away just a handful of years ago. So once again, I hope they're reunited. Actually, I think someone mentioned on a show or something like that at least Harold hopefully knows now. But we still want to know answers for Alberta, who is, it's just really so sad.
Yeah.
When you look at Alberta and she's been fighting for like 3 decades. It's insane, So Randy's father, Harold, had actually been conducting his own search into the caves. And the law enforcement said that even after 30 plus years, they are still receiving new information on Randy's case. If we can just get one good break, it may be the piece we need to solve this case, according to law enforcement. So that's why it's still important, because law enforcement has not given up on this case. It seems kind of cold, but it has a following. It has a huge following. And this is where I want to talk about the following that this case has. It's massive. So let's start with Randy's dedicated Facebook page. Has over 14,000 people there, and it's actively monitored. Also, there are groups on Facebook. I've seen one big group of Facebook who are actually going over Google satellite images, and they're looking at local ponds, little bodies of water, and they're mapping out like things that might seem like a car in the vicinity. And this whole area in Kansas has a lot of bodies of water. So there's actually this really good map. I think I'm gonna also link it in the description of this podcast so our audience members could look into it. It's a really interesting map. It basically has the general location marked with all of the interesting details and locations, and it also marked the bodies of water that Adventures with Purpose have searched, some bodies of water that actually people want to search themselves. So for someone who really wants to delve deep into this case, I mean, there's a lot of investigation that could be done.
It's like a rabbit hole.
It's a big rabbit hole. And a few takeaways that I would like to also mention from Adventures with Purpose interviews with the family and with Leanne, the classmate. So the first thing that kind of stuck out to me, I don't know if you can recall this, but there was a time where Adventures with Purpose, the whole team, was interviewing Randy and Alberta.
Randy?
Alberta and Harold, father and mother.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently at one point they had contacted a psychic. And some people have mixed feelings about psychics, but I thought it was worth mentioning because of the fact that allegedly a psychic told them where to check, somewhere, I guess, under a bridge or something like that. And Harold drove to that location because he often would just go and try to find Randy. And he drove there, and then he basically found a note scribbled on the ground. I think it was like clay that had now been like solidified.
Yeah.
And it stated that Randy was here. And this was maybe like a year after, or like a couple years after his disappearance. And it stated that Randy was here, I believe, 1992 or something like that. It also had a date when apparently Randy was there. So
if I vaguely remember, so sorry.
No, take your
There was also like a footprint of a woman's
shoes. Yeah. So Harold called law enforcement. And I think he told them that he remembers law enforcement asking him, "Oh, how do you know it's a foot? How do you know it's a woman's footprint?" And then apparently for Harold, it seemed pretty obvious it was a female footprint. So maybe a prank, but at the same time, such a weird coincidence. How?
Yeah, I'm not convinced by this.
Yeah, me too. But just a weird coincidence, right?
Yeah, but if there was a footprint of a woman, could it be the psychic going there and just writing it?
I doubt it, because the psychic was actually in Florida and they were doing like remote calls.
Okay, then that's pretty weird.
Yeah, that's pretty strange. Yeah, it would be crazy if the psychic actually went there and did that.
Just wrote it there.
Yeah, I think that would be pretty crazy. All right, so as I've said, another thing that I would like to kind of mention is that Randy Leach has a Facebook page called In Search of Randy Leach. It's, I believe, ran by the family and the people who are trying to find more information. And in one of the latest posts, actually coming from January 29th of this year, I guess in that post it was described that the family members are actually really let's say frustrated from the fact that not a lot of people are coming out with information, and they claim that someone at the party definitely knows more. And in this post I marked for myself, it was pretty strange because I'm just gonna read a snippet.
Of course.
Do these people not understand how heartbreaking this is for Alberta, or consider the many people who were either at the party or knew others at the party, or maybe were at the drug house the next door that night?
Drug house?
Yeah. So there's some sort of a drug house coming up in this story, which I looked at the map and, where this party took place, and there's a whole bunch of different houses, so it's impossible to kind of make out which house it was, and the original house had been burned down, so obviously we can't find it anymore. And that's basically the one thing I wanted to mention. And I guess another thing, lastly, I would like to also talk about Leanne, a classmate of Randy's. Remember, we were watching the interview together with Leanne being interviewed by Adventures with Purpose. So her story is that, she was actually one of the potentially last people who saw Randy. So she is now a medical professional. I don't know exactly what she does, but she probably works in the medical field. And she says that Randy was intoxicated on the night of the disappearance. However, he did not seem that he was on alcohol or even simple drugs. She almost claims that he was on like a roofie. You know what that is? Like
it was roofied.
Yeah, that he was potentially drugged on purpose, because she was the one who claims that Randy was not into drinking. And at one point, she even described Randy as someone who couldn't even find his keys. He couldn't even use his hands properly to go into his jacket's pockets to kind of retrieve the car key. So he apparently wasn't even able to do that. So it makes you question, how would he even go inside of the car and leave the party in the first place if he was in that bad state? But then also, if he did manage to leave, kind of would explain why he potentially would never make it back home.
Yeah, definitely.
At the same time. So it kind of is, this story, this little detail kind of, could lead into both directions, in my opinion. And some other things that I kind of found interesting from her interviews, that she claims that there was a lot of out-of-towners there, because originally people were thinking that this was just going to be like a local gathering of people, but apparently a lot of out-of-town people came into the party, people from, I believe, Kansas City, she mentioned. So there was a lot of outsiders who kind of made the local Linwood kids kind of feel a little bit uneasy. And that may have, she didn't recall any physical fights breaking out, but some sort of verbal altercations happening at the party. And on top of that, the interesting detail for me was that she said that Randy had recently gotten a new girlfriend. But his girlfriend was apparently someone who was hanging out with the bad crowd, with the people who sold drugs in the area. And there was a rumor even before the party started that Randy was trying to help this girlfriend of his, this new girlfriend, get out of that, life, get out of that connection with those people. And he even said that if he has to fight someone, that he would fight someone. And so there now is a whole theory going around that maybe some people who, were running drugs in the area may have had some sort of bad blood with Randy Leach.
Was the girlfriend ever interviewed?
I have no idea. I don't even know who she is. It's just we only have that information. So yeah, that's something to also think about.
Yeah.
So to sum up, what we know about Randy Leach's case is that it seemed originally, when I kind of did my initial peek into the case, kind of seemed that this may have been a situation where Randy just vanished because he may have been intoxicated and drove into a lake. But now, after so many lakes have been searched and so many other weird information coming out, I at least want to say that it's so hard for me to tell what actually happened here, especially because people like Adventures with Purpose went there and they actually spent days there on multiple occasions, and they're not even sure what happened. So that's why I feel like this case is something worth diving deeper into, and maybe we could definitely return here with some additional information. So let this original episode on Randy Leach's disappearance be like the intro into the case, and if we end up finding some more information or someone kind of gives us some hints, we could come back and kind of take it from there. But generally, what do you think about the case? Do you have any suspicions on what could have happened to Randy?
I actually don't know because it started as it seemed simple. It seemed like a teenager who was intoxicated, probably high, as you mentioned, drove somewhere and just disappeared into a body of water, maybe. But then again, these weird little details like the satanic cult and the druggies and the random foot found in a by the river.
And the guy who found
Yeah,
the
that
foot,
weird guy.
yeah.
Like, I don't know, there's so many odd things involved that it's hard to say for sure. What do
Yeah.
you think about it?
Oh man, I'm completely with you on this one.
Mm-hmm.
Can't even say anything right now. I think we need more information, more details to kind of make any kind of,
Oh,
guess.
plus the family. Where the party was held at. They seem really shady.
Oh yeah, the family that the party was held at, apparently the owners of that house kind of were there and they were selling alcohol to kids.
And then afterwards they burned their house
Burned
down.
their house allegedly to commit insurance fraud.
I don't know, really shady.
It's a weird case.
Yeah.
It's a weird case, and I think I think we may need to come back here and talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's pretty much it on my end. I hope everyone enjoyed this podcast, and we have some more cases that we're working on. We can't wait to jump back into it. And I hope you guys will stay safe, take care of your family, and
let us know what you think. What do you think happened?
yeah, let us know what you think happened to Randy Leach, and we'll join you next time. Thank you so much for listening, and take care.
See you.